Good afternoon, Mr. Birnbrich. Did I pronounce it correctly? How is it? Can you push the button?
Birnbrich.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Birnbrich. And Mr. Birnbrich, you are appearing here before your Miss Van Wingarden is your counsel?
That's correct.
Thank you. Can I call you Gilbert? It's much easier to pronounce. And can you press the button when you speak? When the light turns on, then you are on. The mic is on.
All right. I think I hopefully had this figured out by now.
Thank you, Gil. I am going to put you under oath first before, and then you can state for the record your name, your title, and who you represent. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth? There.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Gil, would you like to offer your testimony as to your involvement in regarding the incident relating to Articles 4, 6, and 11?
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Birnbrich begins his testimony, may I just make a continuing objection to the sufficiency of the subpoena?
So noted. Would you like to continue, Mr. Birnbrich?
I'd like to say a little bit of opening statement. The situation I'm called in to testify is a very unique and complex event, or as Judge Wiseman put it, a bizarre event. There are many complex attorney-client issues involved for the relevant time period, and I have consulted with private outside counsel and have done some of my own research, and have communicated regarding this matter with House counsel also. In the interest of conserving the committee's time and in an effort to be as cooperative as possible, I respectfully suggest that the committee submit questions which would give me time to properly consider the attorney-client privileges implicated. Or perhaps I could write a statement which the committee could consider and then recall me for questions or submit me written questions that I could answer. I believe that would be a better approach than just having questions, because I don't know if I could fully answer just questions thrown at me.
Why don't we start perhaps by having you give a statement, and then we can proceed with some questions. And if need be, we can ask you to submit a written statement subsequently. But while we're here, we might as well proceed to the extent that we can.
I was sitting in my office in the Civil Division at the Office of Attorney General. Between 4 o'clock and 4:30 p.m. on August 3rd, I received a telephone call from the Attorney General, Mr. Buckingham. To the best of my recollection, he stated that OPA was at his apartment and that OPA was trying to serve him with a penal summons, but that he was not letting them in or accepting it. He may have said other things, but these are the points I remember. I offered to call OPA to find out if in fact he was being served with a summons and what it was about. I hung up the phone with Mr. Buckingham and then proceeded to call OPA. Eventually was able to contact Mr. George Hasselbeck. Mr. Hasselbeck confirmed that he was trying to serve a penal summons on Mr. Buckingham. I asked him what charges were in the information, he stated 5 charges of various offenses. I then called Mr. Buckingham and informed him that OPA was trying to serve him with a penal summons and told him that it was the 5 charges that were mainly related to the night at the governor's mansion and the ARA contract with Mike Otta. We spoke about various things of which I cannot recall now. One thing I do recall is that he did not authorize anyone from our office to accept service on his behalf. I believe he also said he still intended to attend his going away party. After this conversation with Mr. Buckingham, to my recollection, I called Mr. Hasselback and informed him that no one in our office could accept service of summons for him, or from him. I believe we spoke on other subjects, but I no longer have recollection of what they were. After this phone call, I spoke with some of the assistant attorney generals in the office about what was happening, and then proceeded to Mr. Buckingham's going away party. I attended the going away party until 7 o'clock, when, after consulting with an assistant attorney general and senior staff member, we determined that Mr. Buckingham probably was not going to actually show up. I then called the staff and attorneys for a meeting, informed them of the situation, told them Mr. Buckingham was probably not going to appear. I then left the party. I had no further communications with Mr. Buckingham that night. I did not find out until next morning that Mr. Buckingham had left Saipan that night and any of the circumstances surrounding his departure. I did not speak with Mr. Buckingham that Saturday, August 4th. However, I did review an email sent out to Charles Brasington dated August 4th, 2012, that was also CC'd to me. In that email, he stated that I'm scheduled to appear on Monday. I request you appear on my behalf. I further request you coordinate directly with Governor Fidel on this matter. I further direct that you utilize any AGO resources you determine to be appropriate in this matter. I shall be in further touch, and he gave a phone number. To be clear, and because I know these proceedings relate to Governor Fidel, to my knowledge and to the best of my recollection, at no time during the AGO's, during our office's representation of Mr. Buckingham in the relevant time period, did our office or anyone in our office coordinate or even communicate with the governor over this matter. I did not attempt to contact Mr. Buckingham that day, based on my experience flying to the mainland, that I can take up to 20 to 24 hours of travel. I contacted several members of the AGO and asked me to meet me for breakfast on August 5th, Sunday. I did this based on the email, and because it was clear that Mr. Buckingham expected the Office of the Attorney General to represent him in the criminal matter. I then proceeded to conduct some preliminary research on the questions of whether the Office of the Attorney General could represent a government employee in a criminal matter. The next morning I had breakfast with some assistant attorney generals and the chief prosecutor, where we discussed the situation with Mr. Buckingham. We then went up to the civil division to conduct some research on the matter, and to eventually we spoke with Mr. Buckingham. Those communications, I believe, are protected by attorney-client privilege. Shortly after the call ended, and pursuant to Shortly after calling it, I called George Hasselbeck, Councilor OPA. I requested on behalf of Mr. Buckingham whether he would agree to stipulate to an extension. To my recollection, Mr. Hasselbeck agreed. However, shortly thereafter, Mr. Hasselbeck called me back and rescinded the stipulation. Mr. Hasselbeck said they would not agree to an extension if Mr. Buckingham was having the AGO represent him. I stated that we discussed the matter some more, but only eventually agreed to discuss it again in the morning. Following that conversation, I spent some time preparing for tomorrow's hearing. The next day, Monday, August 6th, I prepared some more for the hearing. Prior to the hearing, I spoke once again with Mr. Hasselbeck about stipulating to a continuance. Mr. Hasselbeck declined on the same grounds as the day before, that it was improper for an attorney from the Office of the Attorney General to represent Mr. Buckingham in a criminal matter. We discussed the matter some more. Mr. Hasselbeck discussed the matter some more and didn't come to an agreement. We then went to the court, which is, of course, public record. After the hearing, we communicated again with Mr. Buckingham, which of course is protected by attorney-client privilege, so I declined to comment on that. I have not had any communications with Mr. Buckingham since.
Is that all, Mr. Gil? Thank you.
That is all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. I know that you would have probably preferred to have prepared that statement and submitted it to the committee, and I think we would appreciate that. So, but at least for now, I want to thank you for at least doing it verbally. And what I gathered from your testimony was that Mr. Buckingham, after you had informed him that there was a penal summons and by the OPA, stated that he did not wish to accept the penal summons. And I wonder if can anybody do that? Can I as a ordinary citizen refuse to accept a penal summons issued by the court? And I wanted to ask, I don't know if you had asked him what was the basis for his refusal. Do you know?
Actually, I did not ask. I know it's somewhat public record that he, OPA and Mr. Pai and Mr. Buckingham had some adverse relations. So but I would only be speculating, but it probably isn't bad speculation.
Well, and the reason I'm not clear is if it was somebody else who didn't know the laws, and then I can probably, understand it. But for somebody who was responsible for enforcing the laws of the Commonwealth as the head of the top law enforcement official of the Commonwealth, I would presume he knew what was being served, yet he admitted to refusing to accept it. So that's kind of leaves a question in my mind why that would be. But I'm not going to ask you to speculate either. You did state you did not ask, and so perhaps we'll be able to answer that question at a later time. Can I ask you, Mr. Gil, if was there any communication between yourself or any other member of the Attorney General's office that you know of between your office and the Department of Public Safety, with any official from the Department of Public Safety relevant to a request for police escort?
I have no knowledge of anybody in our office requesting or calling from DPS to arrange for any sort of like police escort on that night.
And if there was a request, it would probably be you, since you were the person that spoke to Mr. Buckingham on the evening of the 3rd, and you who was aware of the situation, that I think you may have been the only one at that time that was aware that a penal summons was to be served among the Attorney General's office. Is that correct?
Well, I'd say at the time around like 4:30 when the initial calls, but I did speak to a couple of assistant attorney generals shortly after the phone calls, which probably would have been around 5 o'clock. And then it's my understanding that it was actually already started being broadcast on the news. It's on to 6 o'clock KSPN news. So it wasn't that long before almost everybody seemed to know.
Thank you. Did Mr. Buckingham ask you to arrange for police escort?
Mr. Buckingham never asked me to arrange a police escort.
Thank you, Gil. I will now open it up for other members. Mr. Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Birnbrich, good afternoon, and thank you for being with us this afternoon. My first question is to ask you, when was the last time you saw Mr. Buckingham?
The last time I physically saw Mr. Buckingham was that afternoon, probably like around 1 o'clock, 1:30, maybe 2 o'clock. I went to his office and we spoke about some last minute matters because he was leaving, and I wanted to square some things away.
Good. On that day, August the 3rd, you just stated that you were discussing some last-minute matters. How involved were you with this power plant purchase agreement?
I know I did not prepare for that subject matter, but I believe I can still answer that question. I could fairly characterize I was directly involved in the negotiations with the other party.
Thank you, Mr. Birnbrich. And the reason why I asked the question is because on that same day, on August 3rd, on a Friday, that power purchase agreement was signed. Were you present?
Objection.
Were you present, Mr. Birnbrich, during that signing on August 3rd? Were you present during the signing?
Mr. Chairman?
I don't know.
Just privilege. What subject are we on right now? I'm a little bit confused.
Mr. Chair, I was asking Mr. Birnbrich when was the last time he had communicated and had seen the former Attorney General, Mr. Buckingham.
I'm still in my privilege, and I want to find out
excuse
what
me.
subject matter are we on now.
I'm sorry, I just stepped back in from the men's room, and I'm not sure exactly what was taking place, but perhaps you can restate your
Yes,
question so I
that
can,
you can be
also
more aware,
understand,
then she can,
and then you can
again,
pose
ask
your
for the
question.
privilege.
Okay?
Go ahead.
Can we do that?
Restate your question.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Again, Mr. Birnbrich, on that Friday, August the 3rd, you said it was around 1 or 2 when you last met Mr. Buckingham. And I stated, or rather asked the question, as to how involved were you with regards to the sole source power plant agreement, since that agreement was signed on that same day, August the 3rd. And I asked whether you were present during that signing, since you stated that you were pretty much involved with regards to the power purchase agreement. So the question that I posed was whether you were present during that day of the signing. Were you present at the signing of the power purchase agreement by Mr. Buckingham? And then I will lead to another question.
Go ahead, Vice Speaker.
No. I think I would like to get clarification as to what subject are we on right now, what articles. So is that?
Fair enough.
I think we're still working on
We
the
are
airport
on.
incident. So are we now backing up or going somewhere else?
No, it was August the 3rd when a penal summons was being tried to be given to Mr. Buckingham, and it was during that same day. And the other question that I wanted to pose to Mr. Birnbrich was whether his involvement or his presence during the signing, whether it was Mr.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Buckingham.
Privilege again.
State your privilege.
Yesterday, I did raise a concern. My question was, and had to do with a dinner hosted by Buckingham, and you ruled that, that is not to be taken up yet. So right now we're talking about the escorting, to the airport, and can we just stay with
I
this,
understand. Now,
Yeah.
maybe I should direct the question to Representative De La Cruz, and the Vice Speaker is correct that when she did raise a question regarding an issue that had to do with another article, I had asked that she refrain from asking and that we stick to the issue at hand and that we can entertain such questions when we get to that article. So the question I wanted to ask you is, of what relevance does your question have to the Attorney General's involvement with the airport police escort?
Chair,
Please.
the question is basically leading up to the time of the penal summons attempt to be served to Mr. Buckingham at the Aquarius, as well as at the airport. What I was asking the Assistant Attorney General, Gil, was that on that same day, leading up to those events, was he in the presence of the former Attorney General at that time? And I think it's only relevant because he had answered that he was catching up on last-minute things with the former Attorney General. And that led me to an issue that was acted upon on that same day.
Understood. May I still ask, though, that
So the question was whether Mr. Birnbrich was there on that day, leading up to Mr. Buckingham's departure.
that question is relevant. Gil, I guess the question was, were you there that day, on the day of August the 3rd, with Mr. Buckingham? Rep. De La Cruz, was that the question? I think that's a fair question.
Representatives, if I could respectfully reject to this line of questioning, it appears that this is leading down a path that was not mentioned in the subpoena and for which Mr. Birnbrich did not prepare for. He already answered that he was with the Attorney General around 1 or 2 that afternoon, and that I do think is sufficient for the issue at hand.
So noted. Representative De La Cruz, do you want to go further?
Chair, I'll reserve my line of questioning when we get to Articles 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. And we'll see from there whether Mr. Birnbrich would answer the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Do any other members have any further questions for Mr. Gil Birnbrich? Representative Guerrero.
Hi, Mr. Birnbrich. I want to find out, did the governor ever order you to defend Ed Buckingham?
No, it did not.
It did not, okay. Is it too much to ask to explain the relationship between Ed Buckingham and what's his name from OPA? I want to say Hasselhoff, but that's not the...
Hasselback.
Hasselback, yeah.
Are you asking like the actual personal or like maybe like feelings towards each other?
I don't know if you feel they feel things for each other.
I'd say that I just I don't know.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
State your point.
What I would like to ask, what is the relevance on this line of questioning with Mr. Hasselbeck and the governor? Why?
I'll allow Representative Guerrero to go ahead and explain, or to respond.
The first line of questioning was to find out if the governor was involved in it, in ordering them to defend Ed Buckingham, and obviously he said no. But I just want to find out, what is the relationship between Hasselback and Ed Buckingham? Is there bad blood between them? That may be causing this feud per se?
And I think Gil, Mr. Birnbrich did kind of touch on that there was a history, and I think it's been publicized on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
There were correspondence back and forth. There were other incidents as well. I don't think we need to elaborate here. And I believe Representative Guerrero, I think we also were provided copies of media reports that did touch on some of the history relating to the Attorney General's office and the Office of the Public Auditor. So we do have information in our package.
All right. I'll withdraw my question. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think thank you. Any other members? Representative Torres? Vice Speaker? If no other members wishes to ask any questions, Mr. Birnbrich, you're hereby dismissed. Are you scheduled to testify before this committee relating to the Articles 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7?
This is the only subpoena I received is for this hearing today. Well, originally Monday, but for the subjects related to what we're discussing today.
Mr. Chair, at this point, can we clarify that? Because I believe that Mr. Birnbrich is on the top of the list with regards to a certain article that deals with a power purchase agreement.
Short recess.
Chair, can we